This is the SBC Audio Experience Women in Sports series with guest Ashley Cox. What's up, beautiful people? My name is Kate Foley. I am here at Sports Business Classroom, the audio experience. Here at Hall Pass Media, we have a 4-part series, that's right, 4 parts, on women in sports. And we are gonna touch on anything and everything from philanthropic to mental health to the agency world and also to basketball ops and scouting. Each of these amazing women have awesome paths to their career. They have amazing expertise in their fields. I know that in somewhere in this 4-part series, there is something for everyone, and everybody will be able to take away some little nugget of information, experience, and something to draw on as they chase their dreams down the path of their career in sport. Welcome back, everybody, to Women in Sports, the second episode of this series. I'm so excited for you guys to all meet my next guest, Miss Ashley Cox. She is an up-and-comer in the NBA agency sports world. She has worked with some of the biggest names in the industry. She has worked at some of the biggest agencies in this industry. She has so much insight to share with you guys and to share her story, her path to her sports career. She's a volleyball player. She loves Pilates. She finds amazing balance in her job that requires 365 days, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but somehow she manages to find time to do it all. I can't wait to dig in with her. I can't wait to hear the inside scoop and a couple stories that you guys can take away from her experience on the agency side here on our Women in Sports panel. Ashley, welcome to my gonna be soon pink table in the sports business classroom. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
We have been having amazing conversations just about women in sports, and you are just pioneering a path for so many young women. And I couldn't be more excited to just kind of get to know your story, what you got going on, how you feel about a couple things, and kind of just get your take on things that's going on in the industry. So let's jump into it. I like to ask kind of like fire questions at the front. No, they're easy. They're easy. What kind of made you want to get into sports? Like, honestly, I don't play basketball. I did not play basketball, but I ended up in sports. How did you end up in sports?
I grew up playing volleyball. I played Division I volleyball. So I knew that I wanted to do.
Shout out your school. Come on.
I don't really like to talk about it. I went to Mater Dei High School, though. That was probably really loud. But I went to UC Riverside, played volleyball there. But I knew that I wanted to stay in sports in some capacity. I didn't know exactly where or what, but I was like, I cannot picture myself sitting at a desk, staring at a computer, working a normal 9 to 5. And I know in sports, like no 2 days are ever the same. And so that was something that... And I knew I didn't want to coach. I don't have the patience to coach. So I think that's kind of where it started. I just knew I wanted to be in sports still. And yeah.
Good. No, it's oftentimes I tell everybody you find the things you don't want to do, and that helps you figure out what you do want to do.
Absolutely.
You know, so you're like, I don't have the patience to like coach. I wanted to be a teacher when I was younger. After COVID,
couldn't imagine it.
No, couldn't do it. It's not for me. I can't do it. There's a reason that God did not give me that talent because not for me.
Save those kids.
Yeah, save them. They would not have learned much. So now you're in the sports world. Like you're an athlete, kind of taking your path forward. Kind of like walk me through like, okay, so you're in college, you're playing volleyball. What kind of got you here?
So Albert Hall, actually. It was right place, right place, right time. I was home freshman year of college visiting a friend of mine. It was actually Mike Brown's son, who we went to high school together. He had a game during the holidays and Al was there. We were all just talking and Coach Brown was like, this is Albert Hall. He runs Summer League. And I think at first I was like, oh, okay, but like didn't really know what it was. I hadn't heard of it. And so he's like, send him your resume. And we kind of just stayed in contact. And that's
Did you intern at Summer League?
I did for 4 years, I think from 2013 to 2016.
Okay. And how was that? Like, did you love it?
It was the best experience of my life.
Like, wow.
Genuinely, I'm not just saying that because I'm here being recorded. Like, I looked forward to it every year. you get to meet so many people, build so many connections, and I loved it. I think I appreciate it more as I'm getting older because I really saw like how hard it was to get into. Like unless you kind of know somebody, have relations with somebody, like I don't necessarily think you could just interview or send your resume in and you'd be at the top of the list. So I'm forever grateful I was at that basketball game because I don't know if I would be where I am right now had I not been there. So,
and I think that's like one of the most like interesting things, like when you think about like career paths, right? Like there are people who, you know, knew they always wanted to grow up and be this and like, that's it. And then there's people like you and I that kind of like, this wasn't what our dream was.
It fell in our lap.
Right. It kind of like, we had opportunity, we took it, we opened a door that opened another door.
Absolutely.
And like, you kind of have to be open to that. Like, it's so different than just being like when I was growing up, everyone always says like, did you know this is what you want to be? And I like laugh because my dad's like, I still don't believe that that's really what she does. Like how she got here, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
But it's just all about like taking opportunities and like having the confidence in yourself that like, even if you don't have all the tools you need to be like successful,
right,
you have enough confidence that you're like, okay, like I know I can go out and kill this. I'm going to learn skills. And Summer League is like one of the great places to do that. That's what I always say to everyone is like, you learn everything there. Like I wasn't an intern. Like I think I'm too old for that, like of like before that my time. But like you learn ticket sales, you learn how to do logistics, you learn how to do game ups, you learn how to do everything top to bottom. And at the same time, it's like a community, you know, and it's a very much like team atmosphere. And I think that's what we're seeing like more driven. I think gone are going to be the days of like, whether it's agencies or teams or league offices of just like that corporate world, because you spend so much time with these people. So, you know, it's like a lot of things used to be like transactional, right? And like here's a job and you want to like, we're hiring for this job. And I think what I've seen now is like, and it's honestly, it's like something I try and live by is like, I want to hire a person first and then create a job for them.
Yes.
Because just because like you have all these accolades and your resume looks like X, Y, and Z, if you don't have experience, you don't have the personality, you're not coachable, like, I don't know what to do with that.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's like, you know, you look at people that are like, I have this amazing resume, but then it doesn't transition into like the culture community that is sports.
Yep.
They're not set up for success. And I think that's what I always say is like, Summer League for you sounds like it set you up for success, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
What was your favorite moment from Summer League?
I don't think I can pinpoint one necessarily. I think it was just going each summer, seeing people that I worked with the summer before, meeting new people.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll probably talk about this later, but I think the one thing that stuck with me the very first summer that I did it was the day before the whole event started. We were all meeting and Warren and Albert were talking to everybody, and Warren had said that like your ego is not your amigo. And
I love that. I'm stealing that.
10 years later, I like it. It's something that's always stuck with me.
Your ego is not your amigo. That needs to be a shirt. We need to make Warren a shirt.
Warren Legary, yes. But it stuck with me because I feel like the people that were most successful at Summer League and where it translated into getting a job with an agency or a team were the people who like kept their head down, worked, and didn't think like they were above any job because there's so many different things that you were doing. You could be stat runner, you could be handling the players and doing autograph signings, you could sit by an elevator for 2 hours, and it might suck sitting by the elevator, but that's also an elevator that only credentialed people can walk through. So you can spark up a conversation with a GM for 30 seconds while they're, and they're all paying attention to you. I mean, I was doing stat runner my first year, and I don't think I introduced myself to anyone the first couple of days. And by like the 6th, 7th day, you're going to give it to them. And they're like, thank you, Ashley. And I'm like, oh, it's on my shirt, you know, like my credential. But
you know my name?
They're paying attention to how you're maneuvering and all of those things. And so that just always stuck with me. And when people reach out and want to ask about my experience and my journey, I never hesitate to tell them that Warren said that, because I think that's helped me get to this point. So
I think it's like beautiful when you know, so many times especially when, you know, I talk to younger people that want to get into sports, it's like, you know, I love a big dream, but if you're not going to do the work to get your dream, like don't be mad that you didn't get what you wanted because you didn't put the work in to get it.
Yep.
Right. And so, you know, you look at opportunities like, you know, for you running stats, like, how did you show up? Like that mattered. You know what I mean? To like coaches, GMs, personnel, like to everyone. And that is what everyone looks at. And I think as a woman in sports too, it's like hyper focused too, right? It's like, you know, you're not one of many, you're one of few. And so, you know, Becky Bonner on our other show had said that like, she's like, I'm memorable. I'm 6'2" and a redhead, right? Like, yeah, you are like, but she also is aware of that and she's hyper aware of that. And so, you know, how you show up, how you carry yourself is just so important, but be authentically yourself.
Yep.
Because I find so many times, like we were talking about imposter syndrome earlier, like you try and fit into this like world of like, okay, I'm supposed to be this way and I'm supposed to be that way. And I'm supposed to dress like this or I'm supposed to dress like that. And then, you know, 2 years from now, that's not the trend anymore. And so you're constantly trying to change to become something you think instead of just being like, this is me.
Authentically,
like, take it, leave it. And I think, you know, when we look at like athletes and you're in the athlete world, like I literally say to them all the time, like be unapologetically yourself, like within reason. Like sometimes we need to like shape that a little bit, but be authentically yourself because you have to show up that way every single time. And if you can't do that, if you're not authentically yourself, you can't, that's not maintainable. That's not sustainable. And then people are like, well, I got this version of her last week and I got that version of her the next week. Like, which one is it? And especially for like women in sports, like if I walk in a gym in sweatpants and dunks, they're like, is she okay? Because that's not what they're used to seeing.
See, well, that's me. When I dress up, they're like, who are you trying to impress? So I keep it cute and casual.
No, but that's like, that's you. You know what I mean? And so that's what I think is like so cool about like the diversity that's going on with like women is like, you don't have to play basketball. Like, you know what I mean? I think there's such a stigma and like you played volleyball, right? Like there's such a stigma of like, do women know what they're talking about in basketball if they didn't play? Like I have people that do analytics, that scout, that do these things. Like
you never have to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I do, but like, I don't feel like that. Can I do it? Yes. But is that my strength? No.
Yeah.
So like, I look at it like this, like everyone has a swim lane. I can go in any swim lane, but I want to be really good at what I do. So I'm valuable, but know that if I need to have a skill in another place, I want to learn. Like I'm all about learning and growing. And I think, you know, from an agency side, that is what people, I mean, the agency side is like super crazy, girl. Like it's so snaky. It's so just like no one can be friends. You can't be friends. Like I found sometimes like even like women, like you can't even be friends with someone at a different place because then it's like, are you going to go work there? What are you trying to do? What are y'all doing? And it's like, I just want to go kick it with a girl that we can go talk about whatever. And like what we saw on TMZ.
Things that we can relate to in our job.
And to just feel like, hey, you had that experience. I had that experience too.
Yeah,
or
not
like,
alone.
Right. Right. And then like, oh, let me draw from you and take your energy of like how you handled something. Because our experiences are not compatible to the male version of that experience sometimes.
Agreed.
And so not having that like sounding board is a good way to say it. Of like, oh, I'm not crazy. Or like, yo, I should have said that instead of that.
Yeah.
What for you has just been like one of like, as you've transitioned, so you're on the agency side now. Okay, so you did Summer League 4 years. Walk me through next. What happened next?
So I did NBA Summer League and I also did Adidas Nations those 4 years. Okay. So at Nations, I became friends with Buddy Hield. And so when he was in LA after our senior year of college for the Wooden Awards, I was like stopping by to say hi and Rob Pelinka happened to be there. I don't know if I should be saying this on record. I mean, he ended up signing with him, but Rob was there. And I think Rob thought that I was a girl that was just there to see him. So he's like, oh, I'm leaving soon. I was like, yeah, it's not like that. And so we all just started talking. And I think he was kind of surprised that I could keep up with the conversation. And I had said that I interned with Summer League. And he was like, you need to send me your resume. And so I was in my last quarter of school and sent it my resume. Kobe ended up dropping 60, I believe. Probably should know that down to a T, but he dropped 60. So he kind of like ghosted me and I'm like, oh no, you know, in this industry, things either happen very quickly or it's slow as molasses or they ghost you entirely.
Yeah.
And so he ended up reaching out again after kind of the craziness subsided. And I started while I was in my last quarter. And so I worked with Buddy Hield, who he ended up signing, and then Marquise Chris, who was his other top 10 pick. So that was my first experience working through the draft process. It was a little bit more, I think, like surface level compared to what I did in the last year.
Yeah.
But I got to go to the combine. I was at the draft. So that was really cool. So I did that for about a year and some change. And then Rob ended up becoming the GM of the Lakers. Am I going through the whole process of like my journey right now?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
And then from there, I was at ISE, Independent Sports and Entertainment, under Joe Dumars.
Yep.
For about a year and a half.
Okay.
And then, I mean, both places, I think I went into it like, I want to start my career and I want to grow. And with agencies, they're very territorial.
For
and
sure.
Relationships that I was building with players, like I didn't want to keep bouncing from place to place because there's no stability.
Right.
And so I was at ISE, went through another draft process, still kind of like surface level, I think. And then that kind of didn't work out. I think there was internal stuff. They weren't bringing on the interns full time. And so I was like, I feel like I'm forcing being in this industry.
Yeah.
Like it's not working out. I'm going to take a break. And so I ended up working for a publicist in entertainment.
Oh, wow.
Which was a really cool experience. But I realized entertainment is not my lane. Like I can navigate basketball pretty well, especially now. And like red carpets and entertainment was like giving me major anxiety. Like I could not go up to people and like, hey, this is my client. Do you want to interview him? It was not for me. But I definitely learned a lot in just like pitching for events and, different media platforms and things like that. And then that was about 9 or 10 months because I was just going back and forth and up to LA.
Yeah.
And then I took some time off. Obviously the pandemic happened. And then I had maintained a relationship with a player and his family that I knew from when he played at Nations, and his dad actually called me and was like, do you want to interview for this position? And so I went in at like 9 a.m. on my birthday, got the job that night. And then
Happy birthday.
I was in the interview. I was like, by the way, my birthday's today. So like, if you please make sure I get this job.
I'd like to have a great birthday, not a bad one.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Can you just make that happen?
Yeah. So at 27, that was the first time I got my full-time gig with benefits, 401k, like the whole, and I was like, finally.
No, but like, honestly, so so a couple things, like you've been in this industry for the
10 years.
Yeah. I've been in it 15. Our paths have obviously crossed and we've never met.
Ever.
How crazy is that?
Yeah.
And
we meet so many people.
But I also think that sometimes like we're taught to like sit, like don't meet new people, stay in your little circle and keep your head down.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't want that to be the case anymore. Like I want other women to like be like, hey, like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to rah you. Like, yes, do we compete? 1,000%. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to cheerlead for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or support you. Like, I think that's like a big difference for me when you look at like women in sports is like, the guys are very territorial. They're very like, mine, yours. Let's stay down opposite sides of the street. Where like, for me, I just want to be like, hey, like, we don't get enough support anyways sometimes.
Yeah.
And T.I. had this quote that was like, if you live for the applause, you'll die by the booze. Like, you can't live for anyone else's validation.
Yeah.
But I also know how bad it sucks as a female to like work your butt off and not have somebody like support you and encourage you for fear of that will make you look important. That sucks.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like I want everybody to eat. Like everybody, because that's how the world works. And so I'm sitting here, I'm like, how have we never until today met? But now I'm like, okay, Kate, now I need to take away from that and be like, okay, next time I see these other people, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to put myself out there. And the same thing for you, right? Like you see other women, you're like, yo, we're all doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
Like, let's, make sure that we're all like communicating and like building our own little army of fun over here.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think I've kind of struggled with that. And I'm a very outgoing person. I like meeting new people. But I think I've really struggled with that because I'm so big on meeting people organically. Yeah. Like, I think, you see people on social media and like, oh, that's another woman in sports. But then you also have to realize like people have agendas, men and women, right? Totally. But it's like, okay, why do you want to meet me? Or why are you trying to connect with me? Like, I know we're both women in sports, but people do have that's just me being paranoid. But
the industry will so make you that way.
Yes.
Like, honestly, like it will totally like put a bow on your paranoia that you're like, am I nuts? But
Yeah.
no, like sometimes you're not, sometimes you are.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So I do know, like, especially in my job currently, like, being more open to meeting new people, but I just have been so big on, like, I want to connect with someone organically because yes, we might be in the same industry, but like morally, do we align?
100%.
You know, and that's because you can be really great at your job and this might benefit us both transactionally.
Yeah.
But like, I still want to be able to have someone that can be that soundboard, not just be transactional.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also too, it's like, you know, I try and take the responsibility on too of like, you know, what is the standard beyond us?
Yeah.
Right. So like, what are we demonstrating as women in sports for the next Ashley and the next Kate?
Yeah.
Right. Like, what are we saying? Like, hey, this is okay. You might not hear it from anyone else, but this is okay. And, you know, you talk about how, like, how do you show up? And showing up doesn't just mean being there. It means being present and aware and like who you are. And I think, you know, so many times, you know, all these guys in the league, they all know each other and they're all, not all of them are friends, but some of them are friends on and off the court. And so our paths cross and it's instantly sometimes to be like, okay, I'm just not going to say anything, where it's like, yo, like, what do you do? Who are you? Like, whatever. Yeah. And it's not malicious, but you're like, in your mind, you're like, what should I say? What should I not say? Like, who is this person? Right. And I think now, like, as I get more mature in my career, I am at the place where I'm like, I'm me, love me, hate me, just don't disrespect me.
Yep.
Like, that's it.
Amen.
And you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to like me, you don't have to love me, you don't have to respect me. Just don't disrespect me because I'm a female. And like, I want to go back and touch on something that you talked about. And I've had it happen to me too. So props to you because I know how hard that is. You know, you walk in a room or other people in the industry come in and they automatically assume you are a support person. Or you're someone's girlfriend, someone's wife. And it's for a while, it's like, honestly, it's like it beats you down because you're like, why can't I be here?
Yeah.
Why can't I be here? Like, why do I have to be this, that, or the other? And now as an executive, I sit here and I actually like flipped it in my mind and I like use it as a benefit now because I'm like, most people don't expect me to be who I am. So it's like that little like hidden, and then it's like, oh.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I got to observe you without you knowing who I am.
Yeah.
But I also got to see how you treat people without you knowing who I am. So I organically got to experience you without you knowing it. And so, you know, when that happened to you, like, because so many young women, it's going to happen to. And I would be remiss if I were to say it's never going to happen to you. Like, come on, Ash.
Yeah.
Like you and I both know it's going to happen. What advice would you give to these young women that want to be in sports that are in that situation? Like, what would you say to them of like how to handle it, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I was always trying to prove how I knew somebody to justify that I was like, it was work related or from an event.
To be there.
You know, and I, you know, wasn't doing other things. And then I got to a point where I was like, the more that I explain myself, the more it seems like I have something to hide.
Right.
And so I stopped explaining myself. Like I would be like, oh, I know them from an event I worked, and I didn't need to go down this like elaborate path. Rabbit hole of like justifying it. And I think now, and I actually have dealt with this in the last like year, where it was someone that worked from a team that came to watch one of our players, and we're just like all chopping it up. And he was like, oh, are you his girlfriend? And I was like, why would you think that? So I get snappy. I don't necessarily recommend.
It's a fair question,
but I just challenge them a little bit. Yeah. Like, what would make you think that? And he's like, oh, you guys like look good together. And I was like, no, well, that's nice, but like I work with him. I handle client servicing, and it kind of like, you know, took him back a little bit. And so I think it depends on the day, how I respond. But most times it's just like I keep it cute and I just say no. I work for him, or I work with him. He's one of my clients. With one of my rookies, I'm his sister, or I'm the girlfriend, or, you know, any of those things. And so I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and I was like, yeah, my favorite is when people assume that I'm the girlfriend and I can't possibly work with them. And he was like, oh, it's because you're cute. I'm like, but that doesn't minimize. It shouldn't matter, because if I wasn't, you would think like, oh, okay, she has to just work with him.
Right. Then she's not good enough to be his girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think my advice probably would just be to stand firm in who you are and be confident in the work that you do. And just like don't minimize yourself. Like you're there for a reason. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And people, I think, just need to change their perception. Honestly, it's not a you thing. It's them.
Well, I think like that leads me to like another point I want to make on this is like, you know, you have the opportunity to educate people what's acceptable and what's not. And sometimes it's easy to minimize yourself and be like, okay, I'm not going to challenge them or I'm not going to correct them. And depending on the day, like sometimes like you're not worth my energy to like go down this rabbit hole with you. And it's not going to matter because I know I've had multiple experiences with you. But at the same time, it's like if someone says something that's not appropriate, speak up and say, hey, like that, you know, that wasn't okay.
So they don't do it to the next person.
Right. Or it gives them an opportunity to not do it again. But if you don't say anything, you're not changing anything. Right. And so I think that like, especially with like women in sports, like how you show up matters, but also how are you dressed? Are you dressed appropriately? Are you showing up in a professional capacity? Right. But even if you, like I said, like I don't look like the normal NBA agent. Like I also don't want to sit here and.
But what does the normal NBA agent look like? You know, like
a little snake in the grass.
Okay, well that I'm saying as far as like that is true. Just slithering along. But I'm just saying, appearance wise, like okay, what are you supposed to wear? A suit and tie at all times or a turtleneck?
Totally. And that's what's hard about
2023.
Well, and that's what's hard about this industry is like. There's the old school and there's the new school and then there's everything in the middle. And I think, you know, when you look at women in sports, it's like, you know, I always say like, is your path going to be harder? Yes. But there's a lot of different demographics that have a harder path. It's not just women, but we're talking about women today. So we'll talk about women. But like, you know, sometimes it's easy to, when I was younger, I would carry this load of like, why am I not good enough? Like, why do they assume this? But again, like you said, that's a you problem, not a me problem. And then when I see you again, I hope you've changed your view. If not, I know that you're not a person that is going to hold value to me. It's like, don't ask someone to tie your laces that, you know, has never been in your shoes kind of thing. Like, cool. But I also think for young women to be prepared for those conversations, like that's going to happen to you. In some capacity, someone's going to make you feel less than. Or like you don't belong. And you almost have to like do some role playing and be prepared for that. And you're not going to get it right. Like the first time you're like, oh, shouldn't have said that. Or, oh, this, that, the other. But like, hey, this is going to happen. So if someone says to you like, hey, are you someone's girlfriend? You should have an answer for them. Like that's, you know, I'm always like, he wishes. Like I'm good, you know, like, if only like you keep trying. But like, you know what I mean? Like, cool. But like, you're not asking, you know, a guy, are you his basketball trainer?
Right.
Like, they don't ask that question.
I had a conversation with a friend about that. I was like, I'm going to start shocking people and be like, well, are you? You know, like, why can't you be? Or like, you know, just making an assumption about what their position could be because they do it with us.
Well, and I sometimes find myself like trying to take that back and reflect too of like not myself being that person and assuming that is the basketball trainer or that is this, because now like roles are so diverse and what, you know, you said like, do you wear a suit and tie? Like the coaches don't even wear suit and ties anymore. They wear, you know what I mean? They wear the same thing the equipment people wear. So like you really don't know who people are anymore. And so treating them with the same level of like respect, humility, and just kindness that I want given to myself has been something I've just like tried so hard to work on is like, you don't really know who anyone is. And that's the beauty of like being a woman in sports is you get to experience that firsthand, but then you also are sympathetic and understanding to other people who they probably had that happen to them too and really supporting them and empowering them, you know, not like, oh, that's, you know, this, that, the other. It's like, okay, cool. Like you're in this role. Like, how can we work together? And I think, you know, for women and young women, especially like, you know, knowing that those are going to happen and being prepared for them and not being caught off guard. But that's why I always like to share stories because it's like, I've been there. Like that sucks. And then you're like, why does this keep happening to me? What's wrong with me? Should I look different? Should I try and be different? And then you go down that path.
Should I be quieter? You know,
you go down the path of like, what can I change about myself
and
to not have this happen? But you don't need to do that.
No.
You know what I mean?
Show up as yourself.
Authentically, like yourself, and then you don't have to do it. What, for you, like what, you know, you're in sports now, you're on the client service coordinating side of things. Like your hands are in like a lot of different pots. Literally, like I always say to everyone, there's no day that's the same.
Yep.
And quite frankly, like even I always say, what was yesterday like? Because that's the last day that you probably remember.
I don't even know what today brings. Yeah.
But what was your yesterday like?
Literally yesterday?
Yeah, like literally yesterday.
Well, I did not work out. I usually work out. Yesterday would have been a Pilates day, but I did not. But I would work out in the morning, and I think kind of go down my to-do list of things that I need to handle for clients, check in with them. If anyone has any obligations, with brands that they might be working with, kind of handle those. I think it also depends on the time of the year. I know we're talking about specifically yesterday, but just in general, there's the ebbs and flows of the business. Certain times of the year are busier than others. And I've learned that more than ever in this last year and a half, because pre-draft process is crazy. You live at the office, and then in season, you are kind of twiddling your thumbs at times, And so, yesterday was, I guess, more of a chill day than what other days would be.
What's been like one of your biggest challenges? Like, and I don't mean even like personally, just like professionally, what has been one of your biggest challenges? Like we always talk about, like the NBA is a lifestyle, right? And a commitment to whether it's agency side, team side. Like this is a lifestyle. This isn't a 9-to-5 job. This isn't we get holidays off and we don't work the weekends. This is a like commitment to a career. And I think sometimes, especially for like the younger generation that wants to go into sports, it's cool. I want to work in sports and it's cool. Yeah, it's really cool. We get to take planes and car services and see the back of house.
It's like 5% of the job.
Exactly.
Though. 95 of it is not you running around with your head cut off like a chicken.
Totally. Well, and it's not, it's not glamorous. You're in the back of house.
It's not.
You're at a hotel. You're like, great. I don't remember my room number because I've been in 6 different hotels this week. Like, what is my room number tonight?
Yeah.
What, for you has been like one of the challenges as you've adjusted to your role as it's kind of like changed throughout and you went, the PR route. What's been a big challenge for you on the NBA side with such a long season and just different levels of players? Like different players require different levels of attention, dedication, but everyone wants the same thing from you. What's been one of your biggest challenges?
I think one of the challenges that kind of sticks out for me is just knowing like the players that you work with. Some might be easier than others to work with. Some have a lot more going on than others. And then their teams, their families, just like being able to navigate those different spaces and handling different personalities is something that I've really learned. I think something that's been a challenge with me, my boss is in Chicago.
Okay.
And so working with somebody on a day-to-day that is not in the same area as you is hard. And then not having to go into the office at all times, you have to really maintain a good routine. And I think I learned that having been a volleyball player and coaches that made me have my schedule down from the second I woke up to when I went to sleep.
Right.
And so those times of the year that aren't as busy, staying on top of everything that you need to, even if you're working at home. And I'm still navigating that.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's been a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, I think, always for me, it's one of the things I struggle with is, being able, and I've really tried to work on is like, I like to give the best version of me to every single client. And that also comes with limitations. I can't be for everybody like the same,
Yes.
There's ebbs and flows. Like there's some guys that need a ton of attention. There's some guys that you talk to once a week, like, and understanding them and the dynamic. And you just talked on like really understanding the guys and what they need. And I think there's something special to be said that I personally feel like women have more intuition and more nurturing side, but they also have the compassionate side where it's a human side. And I don't know, I'm really big on their people first, players second.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in this industry, like they get caught up in like being a transaction. Like they are a line item on a sheet in a transaction. And, as a woman, sometimes I feel like your people look at you like, hey, this is your job and just do your job. And you get caught up in like, yeah, but like, I know what's going on, what else is going on in their life. And you become that sounding board for them more so than like some of the male counterparts, simply because that is just a woman's nature to do that. And one of the things that I try and work on is making sure I don't put too much on my plate, that I can't be that person that they need when they need it.
Yeah.
And also having like boundaries is so important.
I was
literally boundaries are like, and they are hard, girl. Yeah. Boundaries are hard. Like it's like, I want to take like a Sharpie, but I do like chalk sometimes. I'm like, you know, like, but boundaries are so important because, you know, you spend a lot of time with all of these people, your colleagues, the people you work with, people in the industry, and like being able to have strong boundaries of like for yourself, what you need to feel full. Yeah. Instead of just giving all the time. Yeah. But what are boundaries for you? Like, what's that? You know what I mean?
Well, I think I used to always, like, I would say yes to everything. And then talking to one of my mentors, she was talking about how she always used to say yes. And she has 2 kids, and she got to a point where she'd be like, is this something that can wait until tomorrow? Yep. Is this urgent? And I think that's where you create that balance. And then what's the worst that they can say? No, I need this now. Okay, well, I'll figure out how to get it done. But if you set that boundary, you ask that question, they're going to respect you because they know you're going to get it done. It's just you don't want to spread yourself thin, and you want to do it to the best of your ability. So that's something that when I first started my job, I was like saying yes to everything. And I have this long list, and I'm like, okay, but what do I need to prioritize right now? And what can kind of wait? And I would be like super overwhelmed. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, this is the priority. These are things that can wait. And I think having that balance, I think in an industry like this, where it's not a 9 to 5 and it's a 24/7 job, you have to have that balance or you're going to wear yourself out, you know, and have that personal time because you need it.
Do you feel like, you know, like you're young, beautiful, single maybe, I don't know. But like, do you feel like sometimes it's easy for people to kind of like dump off their workload into someone that doesn't have a family? Right? Of like, oh, they don't have anything. I found in my career as I was going through it, like, it's like, oh, just dump it to Kate. And it's like, you do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, or they just don't want to do it. But it's that like, you know, you're young, you don't have a kid, you don't have a family. You can go do all this. You can travel 7 days a week. But that might not be good for your own personal mental health. Yeah. And now as I reflect back, it's the same thing where it's like, you know, you have to set a boundary of like what for you need as a person, but also just like as a woman. Like sometimes I just feel like they're like, yeah, just send it over there. I don't want to do this. Send it over there. And you don't want to say no because then it's like, oh, she's difficult. Yeah. Oh, she's hard to work with. No, I just made you accountable.
Yes. Because why can't you do it?
Right. But it's like, I feel like there's a little bit of a double standard of like, I did a panel a while ago and it said, how many of you have been called bossy? Women have been called bossy. And I'm like, all the time, like even growing up, I felt like I was called bossy. And now, I definitely was. You know what I mean? Like for sure. Yeah. And I joke with my mom because I'm like, now I'm not bossy. I don't feel like I'm bossy. I'm just direct and assertive. Yeah. And there's a difference. Yeah. But I feel like for women, we're tagged this like difficult, bossy, you know, moody, whatever, because that is what's socially said. But so if a guy's in a bad mood or he's direct or whatever, he's just being a man. Like, please, like, no.
I think that's where I've tried to find the balance of like, because I'm very empathetic. I'm pretty nurturing. And I'm also like hyper aware of just about everything. Yeah. And so I never want to come off bossy, but like when you know something needs to be done, I don't want to be micromanaging either, especially with someone that's my equal. I wouldn't even want to do that with someone that I'm managing. I had an intern and I was like, with my imposter syndrome, I was like, I feel weird asking her to go get the lunch for the guys, but like, I can't do it right now, you know? But I think I try to present things. I've gotten to a point where I'm probably almost too nice at times, but I want it to be received well. And I want to be easy to work with, but I know that when things need to get done, or if I feel like I might be disrespected or whatever, I know when to be assertive and stuff, but I try to do things, try not to be.
Yeah. You pick a battle, right? Yes. And, you know, sometimes we talked earlier on the show about how like, you don't always have to have something to say. Yes. But when you do, speak up. And so if you're constantly saying something, then people kind of stop. It's like noise. But now it's like, okay, like, I don't disrespect me, but I'm going to stand up if you do. Yes. And like, I do think it's something that I want to see, and I would hope to see from more men in this industry and just in leadership roles, of empowering women to be leaders, not keeping them pushed down of like, okay, this is your job. You're never going to outgrow it. Right? Like, no, I want to outgrow it. Like I have this rule with myself and everybody. It's a 3-year rule. And in 3 years, you either need to move on or you need to move up.
I like that.
You cannot stay in the same place for more than 3 years because you're not growing as a person.
Yes, I have to write that one down.
And I've told people like, I'm going to fire you if you don't move on or up because I'm keeping you from being the best version of yourself and letting you be complacent. And I know that there's so much more for you. And so I try and live by that with everyone of like, cool, like am I growing? Am I learning more? Am I doing things? And especially for women, like as this industry changes, like, you know, this wasn't when I came, like, this wasn't my plan.
Yeah.
This wasn't like sports marketing. They didn't have sports marketing in college. They have it now. And they're so much more well equipped, but there's that experience level that's like missing. And I think especially for somebody in your role, like you have to be a people person. You can't just be like a cardboard.
Right.
Because guys won't relate to that and athletes and people you work with won't. They need somebody that wants nothing from them.
Yep.
Because every single person in their life wants something or depends on them for something. And when you can just be that like consistent person that shows up for them as a person, I don't care if you're 33, whatever, just be a good person.
Yeah.
That's what I want for you.
Yeah.
And when you can work with people like that, you're kind of setting the tone of like what they expect for that role, let alone the gender, but that role, you're kind of changing that narrative as you go through that space. And I think that's like so special.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So a couple questions. I want to know, what is your like dream job? Like when you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up? I wanted to be a teacher and God knew better for me. So I didn't go down that path.
I feel like I like blacked out certain things in my childhood, but I wouldn't be surprised if I was like wanted to be a singer or something. And I was like, hey, now I sound like a dying whale.
You hate entertainment. You hate entertainment.
Right. I don't know why I thought I could sing. I honestly can't remember, but I do know that at one point I wanted to be an agent, and that was going through summer league. And then I started to realize how grimy the business is. And so, but when I, thought that's what I wanted to be, that's when I started researching who the top agents were. And I was like, this is like super male dominated. Like I want to be one of the women in it, come, change it up, rock it up, whatever. But then obviously I quickly realized how grimy it is. And I was like, I think I would probably go home and stare in the mirror and cry every single night if that's what I was. So I don't think this is for me. And then I think my goal has always been, since college and doing summer league, has been to have my own boutique style management company and doing kind of like the off the court, off the field concierge marketing. That's kind of where I see myself. And throughout my journey earlier on when I, things kind of weren't sticking, I would have friends that like, Ashley, you have so many relationships. People relate to you. They're receptive to you. Like, just go do it on your own. And I'm like, I'm not ready. Yeah. And I still have so much to learn. But like, when are you ever actually ready? Because probably right now with more experience that I have had, I probably feel like I'm still not ready.
Right.
But sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. And a lot of people do it. I guess I'm not very good at faking till I make it. But I think that's ultimately my end goal.
Yeah.
But I do like the agency side as of right now. Yeah. I think it helps when you work with somebody that empowers you and instills all of that.
And teaches you.
Yes,
like,
teaches
that's the thing
you.
too, is like so often, there's not a lot of women agents, and there's not a lot of even women in this industry that are in executive leadership roles.
Right.
So there's not a lot to draw from sometimes. And so I think, for you, what would you say to like these young women that want to come into sports? Like, what would you say to them? Would you encourage them to do or to get where you are right now?
I think networking is the best thing that you can do. I think researching different events. I don't know if I necessarily believe in paying a whole bunch of money to going to these events to meet people, because I just have been in the right rooms at the right time and met the right people. But I've always said, like, your network is your net worth. Yeah. And
oh, look, I'm going to steal that from you. We'll swap. We're going to do a swap.
That's from Ashley Cox. But it's true, because I think we talked about this earlier. Like, I've never gotten an opportunity from going online, looking at a job application, applying, and going through the interview process. It has been really being at the right place at the right time, word of mouth through a relationship that I've had and they've referred me to somebody else. Like there's people from Summer League that I know back in 2013 that I still talk to this day. And we're all in different places doing different things and in different places in our lives. But there's not a single person that I can't call that wouldn't help me get connected to someone that I need to get connected to, or refer me to something, or put my name in a hat somewhere, you know, without me even knowing. And so I think the biggest thing is just like network, you know, put yourself out there, be confident in who you are. Experience is literally everything. So
no, I say that all the time is, you know, some people always ask like, do I have to have an internship to get a job? And my answer is always no, but you need to have experience.
Yes.
Right? Like you don't have to have a year-long internship to get a job. But if you have micro experiences in different capacities, you're bringing a lot of resources and tools to an interview or to a team based on micro things, not just one. Because I think so many times these like young kids are told like, this is the path. You have to get an internship. You have to do this. And then this door opens and this door opens. And sometimes that's, well, I mean, 90% of the time it's up, down, around, take the loop-de-loop, like circle back. Like it all kind of changes. And then you sit there and you're like, okay, is this the right door? Is that the right door? And like, you know, no door's the right door, but you got to go through the door. Yeah. And I think that's so important for kids to know and young people to know, like, it might not be your dream job, but you go take summer league internship, you go work for a team in ticket sales. You don't want to work in ticket sales. You want to be an equipment manager, but at least you're attached to the team. You're getting experience. You never know who you're going to meet or what job you're going to be asked to do. Yeah. And that opportunity creates a space for you to grow. You know, it's not like that's your dream job, but it gets you through the door. Instead of just waiting for your dream job, do something about your dream job. Like, get there, do it. And you might be like, yeah, like you did with PR, like not for me.
But
like,
I tried it.
Yeah. But it also gave you the introspect, I think is the right word, right? Introspect? I'm asking because I don't know. Introspect to be like, hey, this is okay and I could do it, but it's not what I love. Yeah. But I love this. So what can I take from here to go there?
Yeah. And I think to your point about you don't necessarily need to have an internship, but experience helps. I actually have a story about that. There was a girl that reached out to me on LinkedIn and she was just inquiring about the company and like opportunities and stuff, but she actually she clearly copied and pasted the message because she had sent it to my colleague. So she called me her name. And so we were in the office one day and I was like, hey, did this girl like message you? And she was like, yeah, you know, whatever. But like, I didn't respond because she didn't have much experience. And I was like, well, she's in college. Yeah. You know, and she's like looking at her school and she's like, I don't think it was a very big sports school. Yeah. And so for me, who's been for a long time, and my colleague who was a year and some change out of college, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way because I was like, who are you to dictate? Yeah. This is an opportunity that if she doesn't have the experience, this is what could give her that experience. And who are you to get in the way of that? Right. And so I'm like, she has to start somewhere. And she kind of tried to. You
started somewhere.
Yeah, had to backtrack.
Dude, you started somewhere.
Exactly. And I was like, well, I didn't do a bunch of internships. I did 2 every summer, and it was when I didn't have volleyball. Like I couldn't do much else outside of that. I couldn't get involved in the athletic department. I also didn't want to, but I didn't it didn't work with my schedule. Right. But I was able to do summer league, but those are only, huge events, but those are what worked for me. And I just think like to get in the way of somebody, especially a woman, from woman to woman, to get in the way of her trying to get experience, it just did not sit well with me. And I spoke up. I was like, well, you started somewhere. Yeah. I started somewhere. I didn't have all these internships lined up. I had the same 2 for 4 years. Yeah. But so I just think, I don't know where I was going with that, but it spoke to what you just said about internships and experience.
No, what you said just like kind of hits like a nerve where it's like, sometimes I feel like for women, sometimes I feel like we all need to do a better job of reminding ourselves that we had struggles and what we went through and what opportunities we have to not have that be someone else's story. Like my story doesn't need to be someone else's story. Just because I had these roadblocks, speed bumps, whatever, doesn't mean I need to make sure everyone else experiences them.
Absolutely.
Like I have the opportunity to not have that be the case. And I want that to be what I'm leaving behind. But at the same time, like, you know, I'm guilty of this too. I will say there's people that reach out and I just don't, it gets lost somewhere and it doesn't get back. But I think, you know, there is a level of when you reach out to someone, like you said, it's the same copy and paste message, like that doesn't stand out for anyone. And so like, you know, how do you, I always say to everybody that I talk to is like, know who you're going to meet, who you're emailing, who you're going to be in, like, what do you want to get out of this?
Yes.
Right? Like if I'm going to a networking event, I want to do 3 things. I want to get out of my comfort zone and I want to push myself to introduce myself to 4 people that I don't know.
Yeah.
So that I don't feel like, ooh, nervous. I also want to make sure that I go into that room and I bring some kind of peace to it. Like I'm in a room with a lot of people that are all trying to do the same thing.
Right.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of like, I'm better than you, but I also am going to say to you, why not me? Right? Like, okay, why not me? Right? But like, it's the mentality of like, I deserve to be here.
Yes.
Like I belong here. And then thirdly, what am I doing to make someone else comfortable? Because everyone's so uncomfortable in networking events. Like it's literally like a mixer and it's like, there's like little cliques of people that know each other. And then there's people that know no one.
Yeah, I don't go to them like, for that reason. Like,
okay, we're going to go together. We're going to go together. I'm going to make you go. We're going to go together and push ourselves to do it. Because you never know who you're going to meet.
Right.
And like so many people in this industry is so small that like, if you don't treat people the right way,
other people are
karma
going to know.
is coming for you.
Yeah.
But I tell you, she's going to spin the block. Like she's coming for you. And then it goes around word of mouth. And now you're limiting yourself on opportunities because of how you showed up in that moment. And we talked earlier, sometimes there's less levels of grace for us women when we make a mistake.
Yeah.
No one is perfect. We mess up. We say the wrong things. We get it wrong. Like we're human beings. But somebody called it before the recycle bin. You know, like we don't have a big recycle bin. It's like you're out.
Yeah.
And it's like, but all these dudes keep doing some crazy things in this industry and they just keep popping up everywhere. And so I think, you know, as I sit in an executive level now, I want to make sure that I am championing for people that might need that recycle bin. Yeah. And what opportunities am I giving them? And the same thing for you. Like you've had this path and it's like you standing up for some girl that you don't know from Adam, no one. But making that other colleague have the opportunity to either change their mindset or not. But it didn't stop you from being like, oh, they're never going to change, so I'm not going to speak up. It's like, no, this is wrong. And I'm going to let you know it. And what you do with it is your choice.
Yeah.
But it also makes you aware of like, there is a need for that. Because had you not, it would have gone unsaid.
Yeah.
But you spoke up. So now did they call? Did she call? Did they do a call? What happened?
No, but I probably shouldn't be saying this on the record, but I think the girl's a lost cause that I worked with. No. There's been plenty of other things where I'm like, I actually would love to have like a sit down conversation and just be like, you're at the start of your career.
Don't be that girl.
Don't be that girl. Because like you said, word travels, people talk, you're going to make a bad reputation trying to be part of the boys club. Yeah. Like no one's saying be buddy with every single woman, but like, trying to force yourself into a boys club is not going to get you their respect. No.
I think some of that's like insecurity too, right? As women, like we always feel less than, especially in a male dominated sport.
We like overcompensate.
Right. So we're like saying like, oh my gosh, could she be better than me? I want you to be better than me because I'm going to learn something from you. I want to take something from you, right? But I have to have that mentality of like, it's okay to have that be the case. And, you know, you look at those instances like, there's probably been, you know, you're on like the inside of it's like the curtain is what I call it. Like you see I don't want people to see it. I'm like the Wizard of Oz. Like I want you to see in front of the curtain, behind the curtain, not so much sometimes. What has been one of your biggest challenges personally and professionally of what the mental that takes on your own mental, like, it's a lot because I find myself carrying baggage that's not mine to carry because I'm empath. I'm nurturing. I want everything to be perfect for everyone. And I've had to learn like that ain't my bag to carry. Yeah. And that's a hard thing to learn young because you're like, oh no, like don't. You made a choice. You have a decision. Yeah. There's a consequence. What's been something that's like your moment of like, have you had that yet?
Nothing too crazy that I can think of. I think one in particular was a client who's also like I'm friends with their family, had a relatively public breakup. And I'm the nurturing kind of big sister. And so trying to stay professional, because that's my client and not just my friend anymore, and not getting involved in wanting to like, not that he needs me to run to his defense, but like it just was in my nature to like want to protect him. And so I think letting, you know, whoever actually needs to handle it. And I stay back here and keep doing my job and being there to be a sounding board if I'm needed. Yeah. You know, but outside of that, I don't think I've had to deal with anything too crazy quite yet, but I would imagine I would probably try to like compartmentalize it and just, you know, like, I don't know, just probably not try to be part of it. I mean, like you said, it's their stuff. It's not ours. Yeah. And you want to be there for them, but you know, if someone makes decisions, it's their decisions, and you support where you can and are needed.
I think that's been one of the biggest things that I've had to go through in my career is learning when to give my advice and opinion, because it's not always wanted or needed. Yep. But I sometimes felt like I needed to give it anyways. And learning the difference between when someone is open to receiving it and when they're not. Yes. And sometimes
I go through that with my mom right now. Shout out, Mom.
No, like it's so true, because I can tell you the truth, but if you don't want to hear it, it's not going to matter. And I'm burning that opportunity to be impactful in your life. And so, you know, understanding the dynamic of these athletes, of how much is put on them and how much goes through their day. Yeah. You know, I want them to know, like, if I'm calling you, I'm not going to call you for 8 different things. But when I call you, I need an answer and we need to talk. Yeah. Rather than like, oh, you hear so many times like these guys like, oh, my agent's calling again, blah, 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 blah. Like, or they say, I haven't heard from my agent in 4 weeks. And I'm like, what? Yeah. Like, not that we need to talk every day, but like, really? Yeah. And there's just such a different level of servicing that goes towards client retention. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I have found some very successful people in this space for client servicing. And honestly, I feel like majority of them are predominantly women. I think it's because we can multitask. I think it's also because we see them as people. Yeah. But I also think it's because we have a good way to problem solve and everything's not on fire. Like everything's not a dumpster fire. Yeah. It's just not.
Yeah. We're a little bit more level-headed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we bring that. And I think that's something that we don't acknowledge a lot with all these men at the table of like, okay, let's everybody take a beat. Like, let's just calm down and let's find the solution to this problem instead of like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Yeah. Right. I like to be the person that's like, all right, here we go. This is where we are and this is what we need to do. And I think women have that innate ability to do that calmly. I don't know if it's just like in the way God made us, but you know, we bring that compared to like the dumpster fire that just we're throwing gasoline on at this point. But what for you has been one of like your highlights? What has been a highlight and a low light?
Oh gosh. I don't think I was ready for this one.
Oh, it's not on the sheet, so I got her.
A highlight. I think a highlight for me was our pro day that we had, because I pretty much put the whole event together. Okay. And this is making me want to cringe because I feel like I'm taking credit for things that I have a hard time taking credit for.
No, don't do that.
I know.
You have to like own it. Like I did this and I'm proud of it, and you led a team. Yes. Like, yes, girl.
So obviously with me being one of the few people actually on the ground at the office, I was facilitating, you know, the whole event, making sure everything was in order. You know, you have at a pro day, you obviously have a lot of NBA personnel in the building. And I had been part of one back when in 2016 when Rob did it for Buddy and Marquise, but this was my first year, like really understanding the process of entering the draft and, you know, everything that you have to do, like just the ins and outs, dealing with NBA people. But that day particularly, I was extremely proud of, because not only were we amongst the other agencies that got to actually have a pro day, because now everything's in Chicago, but just seeing how well everyone responded to it. Like we had a taco person, that was all my idea. And I was probably most proud of that. But just like the whole day was just, it went so well. And I was like, you know what? I'm patting myself on the back because
I can do this.
I can do this.
Yes.
You know, and so that was probably a high for me. I think a low. I don't really know. I mean, I've had some low lows, but I would say probably just navigating it early on in my career and not having not being able to find a landing spot. That was really hard for me because I knew this was something that I wanted so bad. And then I felt like I was forcing it, you know, and I was just like, okay, is this for me? Is this where I should be? And so wanting to get to somewhere and it, you know, you get close and you have that interview and then they go ghost or they pick someone else, it can be really discouraging.
Yeah.
So I guess probably early on when I was just trying to find a landing spot and navigating it, that was probably just overall a low for me because then, you know, my mom and I are really close, but we'd go back and forth and she'd be like, just get a job. And, you know, and I'm like, but I don't want to do something that I don't love and I'm not happy doing. This is what I love and I know this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
So that was probably, I guess, a low.
But I think though for you, like that's, you know what I mean? Like so many of these young people and young women are going to go through that where, you know, you're not going to get the job. You're going to interview 15 times or you're going to do the internship and then they don't hire you.
Yep.
Not getting kind of like down on yourself of like, okay, I can't do this or whatever.
I'm going to give up. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to give up. And, you know, sometimes you have to remind yourself that like every dot is connected. And so while it might not be today, it might be tomorrow. But I always say to everyone, like in all of those instances, just carry yourself in a manner that you're proud of because this industry is so small and everything's so connected. And the people you work for today might not be the people you work for forever, but the people you work with might be the people that you work for. And so you never know, like literally where you're going to run into people again.
Yeah.
And if you have that, like, well, they didn't pick me and I didn't work out, like you never know, like literally what trajectory someone has. And then you have to interface with them again. And you don't want them to have that experience with you of like, oh gosh. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's hard.
Two things that I wanted to add, and I think I forgot to touch on this when we were talking about the ego is not your amigo thing. Like you just said, you never know where people are going to be. You treat everyone with respect. Right. I mean, like to have Warren Legary be in the position that he's in and he's walking around Summer League picking up trash after complete strangers. I was like, wow.
I want to be like that.
I want to be like that. Yeah. And 9-10 the summers that I've been there after interning, he's doing the same thing. So it's not like he just says it and he doesn't back it up. He is literally walking around leading by example. Yeah. So that's something I wanted to add earlier. And then I think actually another high for me was just landing my position that I had that I got, you know, at 27, because I had seen a post on social media way back and it was like, what is something that you're proud of? Like brag about yourself. We don't do it enough. Totally. And I was like, I landed a position that I had worked 8 or 9 years to get. And, you know, I finally got it. And so I think actually getting that position and having my feet planted was probably the high. And then the pro day, obviously. So,
I mean, I think, you know, one of the things that I continue to see is, you know, like you just said, like we don't champion ourselves enough. And I think that's something as women, we are discouraged or taught not to because it makes us seem like we're loud or we're obnoxious or whatever. And, you know, I think there's that saying that says, you know, people say like, you're so lucky. I'm not lucky.
No, I worked
so hard to get where I am. I worked for it.
Yeah.
There is nothing that I haven't had to experience or do that I'm asking anyone on my team to do.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about that because no one goes straight to their dream job. Like it's just not. You don't go from A to, you know, G. Yeah. It doesn't happen. And so, you know, talking about Warren and picking up trash, like he's leading by example, but he's also not complaining about it or saying to people, you should be doing this. He's like, hey, it's here, but he takes pride in his product.
Yes. I was just about to say that.
It's not even like pride in a bad way, but it's like pride in a product where it's like, I always say when I talk about athletes and people meeting them, I never want someone to meet an athlete or meet me and feel like they just got to meet me. I want them to feel like they had an experience and they mattered. Like, I want to shake your hand. I want to look you in the face. I want to ask you a question, not just like in passing. Yeah. Because that might be the difference maker in someone's life. And I don't even know that. Yeah. And I think, you know, when you look at your experience at Summer League, like you were talking about like the elevator thing, like you can be sour about it and be mopey and have like the worst day, or you can be like, yo, I'm gonna make this the best day. I actually get to sit down because my feet hurt. Yeah. So I'm gonna be over here living my best life while I get my break. Yeah. So I'm gonna take it as like that side of it. And I think, you know, for people that want to come in this industry, especially on the agency side, because that's where you sit, you know, it is, the opportunities are there for entry. I don't feel like there's enough opportunities for growth. I feel like there's tons of jobs that you can get that are surface level. And I think what you do with those opportunities and your work ethic and your product are what allows you to grow. So if you come into it like, I'm only doing this because it's my stepping stone to the next place, you're not going to get to the next stepping stone. Right. Period. Because you're already looking down on the job you have instead of like, yo, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to kill it. And I'm going to make it so hard for them not to keep me. Yep. Like it's all a mindset. And I feel like, you know, sometimes as women, like we're almost insecure or like very introverted in that sense of like, we don't belong here because we didn't play basketball. Right. Yeah. Like I don't go out there and hoop. I'm not going to go rebound for you. Like
I got little hands.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not trying to mess up what I got going on. You know what I mean? Like I'm good, but I also know that's someone else's job for you. So I'm going to let them do their job. Yep. And then I'm going to expect them to let me do my job. My lane. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And then we can all be successful holistically, or like Knights of the Round Table. Like we're all contributing to the success of one goal. What for you, you know, when you look back at you as like a young girl and you were like, you saw sports, you obviously played volleyball. Were you like, hey, I want to own my own company. I want to do all these things. Or were you just like, I want to get there. I don't know how. Because I think that's the biggest thing is like everyone wants to get there, but they don't know how. Yeah. What's the how?
Oh, gosh. Well, I feel like I'm still figuring it out. So,
but that's what's beautiful about it is like
I'm kind of still on that.
How?
Yeah. Oh gosh.
But for you, like, what's your how? Like, okay, like, here's where I am today. Do you have like a 5-year plan, a 5-day plan, a 5-minute plan? Like,
I feel like I'm in a place where I'm really trying to be present. Yeah. And that's because I try to, I think I said this earlier, like I overthink a lot. I have self-doubt. And so trying to be in the now and learning as much as I can, being a sponge now because I'm finally established, I'm just trying to be really great at what I'm doing now. And I think that will help me kind of get to the next point. Because if I look too far ahead,
you miss the now.
I miss the now, but I also feel like, okay, am I doing the right thing to get to that? And then I start freaking out.
Yeah, I know you second guess because you're like, should I do this or should I do that?
Yeah, because you try to be too strategic about it. Yeah. So I think it's probably wasn't the best advice, but I think I'm just trying to be a little bit more present right now because I think for me, that's going to help me get to whatever, you know, my concierge company I want in a couple years.
I can't wait. I want to see. I better get the first invitation. That's all I'm saying. What advice do you give to young men about how they interact with young women in this field?
Don't underestimate us.
Hey, talk to me now.
I can do what you can do, probably better. Sorry, guys.
I love it.
Sorry, guys.
I love it. No, talk your talk. I love it.
But I just think, you know, we're capable of doing the same things. So, you know, how you got to where you are might be different than how I got to where I am. But we're both working towards the same goal as far as what we want in a position or where we're trying to get to. And so I just think like both men and women, but men, like don't ever treat yourself like you're better than the next person because I feel like you're only getting in the way of your own success. So yeah.
And I feel like karma has a way of making that person that you treated that way become your boss at some point. And
I don't know if you want that.
You get to be like, oh man, I should have done different. Exactly. What habits for you right now do you feel like are contributing to your success? Like what habits daily, like obviously you do Pilates, like, you know, this business is 24/7, 365, 366, like it does not stop. What do you find are important for you to maintain the balance for yourself, but also help you show up in the way you want to show up?
Well, I think with working from home, you really have to have a really good routine or you'll get sidetracked. And I'm still struggling.
I can't work from home for that reason. Like I'm like, I got to go sit in my office and contribute. And otherwise I don't feel like I'm actually getting done.
Done. But I definitely like if I'm at home, I'm not ever going to do work in my bed because my room is my peaceful place. Yep. It's where I lay my head. So I try to sit down at the table. But when I was in college, I touched on this earlier. Like I had coaches who made us, for the whole, quarters. So like for the whole quarter, 10 weeks from the morning, like when you woke up, when you had your classes, when you were, depending on how many study hall hours you had, factoring that in every week, workouts, and when you go to bed, when you're having dinner, they wanted to know from morning to night what your schedule was. But I feel like that's helped me now in my adult life because if I don't do well if I don't have structure or a plan. Like I can't be like, oh, I'm going to work out tomorrow, but I don't set a time that I'm going to do it, which is why I try to do it in the morning.
Right.
Because I'm like, if it's past 10 a.m., chances are I'm not getting it done.
Yeah.
Okay. So habits, definitely having a planner that helps me like map out my day.
Are you an electronic planner? I'm a handwritten planner.
So I have
I handwrite.
Yeah, I handwrite it, but I also put everything in my calendar on my, so I have 2 places to where it's just, I'm always able to see it.
You're not type A, nothing like that. No. Like it's super detailed.
Yeah. You are. So I use that. I use my phone and I use my actual planner. Yes. So I do that. But I think like setting a morning routine, you know, when you wake up, are you meditating for 5 minutes? Making my bed. I know that if I don't make my bed by the end of the day, if it was chaotic, I'm like, oh, my bed wasn't made today. So that's probably why I was emotional or whatever, you know, like it was just hectic. So I try to establish my morning routine and then just, I don't know, just being organized and having structure in your day leads to success. Because
do you implement this with your athletes? Like, is it helpful for you when you're able to say like, okay, like here's what, you know, because they have a structured life too. And sometimes I feel like for them, it's like a jail sentence. Like they're like, I can't do anything myself. I get told what to do, where to be, how to be. But I also know that if they don't have that, it's like a dumpster fire hot mess and they don't know what to do. Yeah.
I think for me, when I started my position, a lot of our guys have been in the league for a couple years. So they have their routines. They have, you know, the people that they work closely with. And so I wasn't ever trying to like force my way into their lives and their routine. So I haven't done that too much at all with any of our guys. But I think with our younger ones that, you know, I went through the process with or whatever, probably something that I could help with. But
or even just give them like, hey, this is something that works, you know, for me or try it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think if they were to come to me, that's definitely something that I would advise, but I haven't been in a position yet to where that's kind of been brought up.
Yeah.
So
what do you feel like is the best part of your job? Like as a woman, you know, what do you love to see happen in this industry?
I think the best part of my job is just getting to know the guys outside of the professional athlete that they are. Because at the end of the day, that they're humans. You know, they're normal just like us. They just make a lot of money. And so I've always tried to see the person, you know, just as
for sure. That's important.
And the way that I support them is the same way that I would support my girlfriends in whatever endeavors that they have going on. And so I think people who are not in this industry typically struggle with that because they put them up on a pedestal. And I'm like, but you're not seeing the human. You're seeing the person in the jersey. Like they just have been blessed with this talent and that's what they do for a living. So I try to see the person at the end of the day.
I think that's one of the things I always encourage people that are like, I want to work in sports because I love sports. Like you can't be a fan and do the job. Yeah. You can't. It's just as simple as that because you can't separate the two. And
like you said earlier we were talking about it, like 5%, 3% of the job is glamorous. 97% of that is chaos and stress. It's stressful. Like people see the draft and think it's like the best day ever. It is stressful.
It is. It's so stressful.
It's probably one of the worst days ever, you know, but from the outside looking in, it is the coolest thing ever. And I think we do get to experience great events and games and whatever else, but there's so much hard work that goes on behind the scenes.
And sacrifices. Like honestly, like you know, I have young kids, like I miss a lot of things. And that's why who I work with is so important because I want to know that if I'm going to miss, you know, my daughter's dance recital, it's for a good reason and a good person, not because it's just my job and I have to.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that as you look at like what makes people successful in this industry, and there's so many that you could speak to of just how they've been able to be that professional, but then also support them as a person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you can't be a fan and then go work for them. I'm not saying I'm not a fan of yours, but I don't have your posters on my wall. Like I'm cool off that. Like for real. I'm cool off that because I can't separate you as a fan, you can't separate what accountability looks like and what's reality.
Yep.
And then it becomes this blurred version of like, I just want to work in sports. And whenever I always ask people like, oh, can they meet with me or whatever? And I'm like, why do you want to, like, we want to be what you are. And I'm like, well, why?
Yeah.
And their answer 85% of the time is like, I love sports. And I'm like,
that's not enough.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
And if you want to if you love sports and just be a fan and go work at, Bank of America, like be a fan then. But if you really want to sacrifice and go in on what it takes to actually have like a career in this, not just an opportunity, but a career, it's going to come with sacrifice.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to be doing what you want to do at, 22, 23, 24, living like your friends that work at Bank of America. You're up late at night. You're on the road. You're giving all of this for the greater good of what you want for yourself. And that's a big sacrifice to make, and one that I don't think people realize comes with a level of commitment to get there.
Yeah. I have a funny story. So we had interns I started July 2021. So we had a fall internship, and it was virtual though. And so
that'd be so
awful.
hard.
I was like, if this is my first time working with interns, I don't want it ever again.
No more interns, none for me.
But there was a guy that was part of it, and we were on a call one week, and he was like saying how he, was researching different agencies, and he couldn't find any positions, like agent positions at agencies. And we kind of like looked and we're like, wait, what? Like, mind you, it's me, myself, and then the marketing executive that was running the internship, who was a woman. So we're both sitting there like, what do you mean? And he's like, I go on different agencies and there's no job postings for agents. And we're like, well, that's not really how it works. But it was just kind of funny. I think especially being a woman, hearing that and being like, oh, he's clueless. And I feel bad, but it was like, you're like, you have to take a test and get certified.
Yeah.
And then you have to find players that trust you to represent them. And he's like, okay, so like, where do I find these players? And I was like, I think that you are probably in the wrong field.
Or like, we need to take a step back.
Yeah. And like, reevaluate this. Yeah. Yes. But it was just interesting to hear, because I had never, in all my years of doing this, like, people just kind of know, or just they've been in it. They know the processes. And granted, he's just trying to break into it. I'll give him that. But it was, he had not a clue in the world.
But I think too, like sometimes we get jaded, right? Because we just know what we know.
Yes.
And so it's like, how do you not know that? But it's like, you know what I mean? Like, really?
Yeah.
Come on, bro. But at the same time, I learned this. Sometimes when they go to school, I don't know, can't speak to all schools, but like the professor that's teaching them, sports agency 101 probably is not a sports agent.
Yeah.
And they're teaching them from a textbook. And that's why like a textbook and an education can only get you so far. And you have to have that experience to be able to separate a textbook and real life. Like what page 34 says on how to handle something probably might not be exactly how that's going to shake out.
Right.
But having that experience of like, okay, I'm there. We have this crisis. This is what we need to do. There's not tickets at will call. How are we going to solve this?
Yeah.
That's not a classroom moment. That's a life moment.
Yeah.
And that's why those experiences are so important for these young kids. Cause it's like, I have a degree in sports management, sports agent.
Yeah.
Cool. But like, what experience do you have that shows me you understand what it takes to do this?
Yeah.
And, I find sometimes like women hesitate towards going towards like sports agency, sports management, and they just go down that PR role because it's like, women should be in PR. Like women should be in PR. What would you say for you if you had to do it all over again? And not that I'm saying you want to, but if you had to do it all over again, was there anything that you feel like you missed an opportunity that you wish you would have taken? Or one, like you talked about PR, I took it wasn't for me, I'm good. What's one that you feel like you didn't believe in yourself? If you've had the moment, believe in yourself enough to take it, to do it?
There's not anything that I can think of at the top of my head. I'm sure there is, but I feel like had I changed anything along my journey, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
100%.
So down to, sometimes I kind of regret where I went to college, and I could have probably gone to a better D1. But if I didn't go to UC Riverside and I didn't go home for Christmas break, I would have never met Albert Hall, and I would have never done summer league and met all the people that I've had or that I've met and had the opportunities that I've had. So when I sometimes go back and think about things that I would have changed or wishing that I would have done things differently, I'm like, but I'm where I'm at now because I did things exactly the way that they did. They happened the way that they were supposed to. So I don't know if I can think of anything.
Is there an experience where you wish you would have handled it differently?
Oh, plenty, I'm sure. Plenty.
You mean like this morning?
Yeah, like which time? Do I need to actually talk about it?
No, I mean, I'll give you one of mine. Like, one of the things I wish that that I had handled differently, early on in my career was not feeling like I had to be in control of everything. Mm-hmm. I felt like sometimes it was like I had to like do like this because I found my value and my validation in being everything all the time. Mm-hmm. And now I look back and I'm like, I don't want to be like that. I want to be like, yep, that's you, buddy. You go do it, and I'm going to pat you on the back when we're done. Yeah. Rather than like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I think that for me was like hard to learn because then when I didn't have full control, I was like, how's this going to be successful? Yeah. No, girl, like it's not like that. Like everyone serves a purpose. And so I think for me, like one of like, we had Jimmer Fredette when he came out of college, and Jimmer Mania was like one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. Like literally being in Provo, being like chased down the streets was wild. Yeah. Wild. But then taking that of like, oh my gosh, we have to like protect him and like not have all this happen. My regret was we also protected him too much that he wasn't accessible to the people that were supporting him as a person. And so you have to learn like, hey, this is part of it. What's the best way to handle it? And then fast forward that to when Steph blew up. I had that experience before, so I was able to apply it. Yes. So that was like one of my things of like a lesson, not a loss, a lesson of like, we can handle this differently, and took it with me. Where you just have to realize like a team is better than one. Yeah. And as a woman, you want to do it right, but sometimes you just got to do it with everybody. And if it's a fail, it's a fail. Yeah. I think I would say actually, early on, I think I gravitate towards people that obviously I'm comfortable with. But I think when you get comfortable, you might sometimes take advantage of things. And so I think early on, I did that at times. Like, what would that be? I'm gonna pull it out of you. What would that be? Oh, gosh. So with the publicist that I worked for, I got really comfortable, and we worked out of like a WeWork space. And so I would go 4 or 5, I think like 3 or 4 times a week. I would stay at a friend's place up in LA. But I think I got so comfortable that I kind of took advantage of the hours that I would be there when she wasn't, or I was going out in the middle of the week in LA, and then I'm exhausted in the morning, and it ended up me not realizing it because she was just playing it cool. It backfired, and I ended up losing my job, Yeah. So I think that's where, like I say, like not getting too comfortable to where you're taking advantage of things because they might not say anything, but they're making mental notes of everything. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think too, it's also like it goes to talk to, and we'll wrap up with this question. Like you can get caught up in this lifestyle, and just because you live it doesn't mean it's yours to live. Yeah. And, so many times I see young people come into this industry that feel like they need to be the person that is going out with the guys and doing all this stuff. And like, I'm cool and we're cool and we dap each other up and it's whatever. But you have a job, like be professional. And then as soon as you become so comfortable in that, don't expect them to ask you to do the hard work things. Yeah. Because now they don't think you can. Exactly. You've chosen a side. And so I think as women, we oftentimes have to choose a side much earlier on than most men do. Yeah. Right. Where it's like, hey, like I had a client one time, I won't tell you who he is, but we were shooting a commercial, and he was on a mic, a hot mic, and I had a headset on and I was listening to him. Can you hear me? And I'm laughing. I don't know if my son needs to hear this, but it's good for him. He said he had a hot mic on and I could hear him. And he said, yo, girl.
Mm-hmm. You're like,
oh no. Took the headphones off. I'm like, we're going to need a minute. And we went in the green room and I'm like unplugging his microphone so no one can hear what we're about to talk about. And I just was like, hey, like, that's not okay.
Yeah, don't address me like that.
That might work for X, Y, and Z, but for me, that doesn't work and it's not acceptable. And I don't want anyone to look down on you for how you talk to people or look at me like I think that is okay.
Right.
And so I'm like, and then he's like, okay, yeah. So now it's like a running joke because now he calls me like Miss Kate. Like not, because I'm like, you can call me Kate, you can call me ma'am, you can call me Miss Foley, but do not call me girl. That's degrading.
Yeah.
Had I not spoken up, he might not know that that wasn't okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the culture, the lifestyle to like talk to people that way. And I'm like, nope. Because the next female that you talk to or you work with or whatever, I don't want them to have that experience, but I also don't want you to look like a clown.
Yeah.
And if you want to be mad at me, cool. But there's
a lesson to learn here.
Yeah, there's a lesson to learn here. And we went back and filmed the commercial and everyone's like, what happened? I'm like, nothing.
Yeah.
We're good. But it didn't need to be this whole big thing in front of everyone for me making my stand. How dare you talk to me that way?
Yeah.
It was like, no, like we're going to talk about it and we're going to address it as adults in private so that we're all being respectful. And then we're going to come out of here and we're going to keep it moving.
Yep.
But I think as women, when those situations happen, we have to speak up more and educate people because, the funny thing is now he has a daughter and I always laugh and I'm like, imagine someone calling her yo girl.
Yeah.
But I want to encourage all of us to make people aware when they say something that makes you uncomfortable or you're in a situation you're uncomfortable, you speak up for the next person. Because I don't want someone to have, I have thick skin now.
Yeah.
Years ago, I did not. And it would have broke me.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay. Yeah.
What you got?
Yeah, like, okay. Like, yeah, probably heard it before. Yeah, good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm not what you expected. Yeah, cool. I know. Welcome.
Yeah.
But it also is just one of those things where it's just like learning curve, and it's all part of the process to get where you are. So, no, well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
We'll do it again. We'll see you at Summer League. We'll do it live from Summer League.
But we'll do like
it'll be Ashley
ASMR.
And Kate. We just need to find a Mary and then we'll be like Mary, Kate, and Ashley all together. Our table.
And scene.
All right, that's a wrap for our second episode. Could not have been more proud and excited for Ashley to join us. She had such good tea for you guys to learn, take away. Her path to sports did not start in basketball, but it is in basketball. Ashley was a summer league intern. She is now blazing a path in the NBA as an NBA player manager. Such great information, such great insight. She was able to tell us what she found that she didn't love that led her to what she did love, which is her career in the NBA. Thanks for coming on today, Ashley. I hope you guys had a great time learning from her, taking things away, but also one of the most exciting things in that interview for me that I was able to learn was just how important networking is. She is a firm believer in it. I'm a firm believer in it. It's not necessarily what you know, but it's who you know. And when you can put yourself out there the way that she continues to do, we both admitted to being a little bit nervous to always doing that. So I hope that gave you guys some peace if you ever get nervous for jumping in a network opportunity. Even those of us in this industry still have that, but together we can all make a great community. She's an amazing person, forging a path. So glad we got to have her here on Women in Sports. Make sure you tune in next week for our next guest on Women in Sports. That's it. I'm signing off. I am Kate Foley from Hall Pass Media and Sports Business Classroom Audio Experience. That's a wrap.